Thank you for the introduction, and also very warm thanks for inviting me to present my paper here. It's my great pleasure and honor. And I would like to give you, so to say, a second good reason for minimal intervention. A first good reason we heard already from our colleague from the British Library, which is economic reasons. You can treat more books or items of cultural heritage when you do less input in terms of conservation. And you can prolong their lives, which is one very good reason for minimal intervention. But there is another good reason, which is based on philosophy. And as this is timeless, so to say, and in some cases even today, economic is not, or finances is not a reason for some clients, you have a second argument. Any conservation action, is based on conservation theory. And one of the best definitions given by the very important conservation theorist Cesare Brandi defines conservation as the momentum of recognizing the work of art, of recognizing the book, which is included in the term works of art, in its material and its historical and artistic, aesthetic bipolarity. That's the definition, which works for each and every conservation activity. In Brandi's philosophy, you find many very valuable ideas. But one I would like to present to you is, in short, if you make no changes in the original items, you need not justify that. But if you make a change, you must explain it, you must justify it, you must have a good reason for it. The eco-professional guidelines for conservators say this in different way. And I would like to introduce you to these guidelines because they are modern language, modern and not too philosophical way to express the thoughts, while Brandi's theory is somewhat difficult to read. And the eco-guidelines define conservation as stabilization of the condition and retarding of further decay. And this the definition of conservation very much serves also for the minimal intervention. So I would like, first of all, to outline the differences between professional conservation, professional traditional conservation on the basis of the conservation theory, and the professional minimal intervention. So the first step in both cases is to make a close survey of the material, of the environment in terms of history of the work of art, the use, the technique in which the work is made out of the material, and of course a condition survey. This is made in both approaches to conservation. In both approaches, in the normal and in the minimal, you then make a conservation concept. And now, what is typical for the minimal intervention concept? I found that the choice of conservation material must be specific the preparation of the conservation material and the application of the conservation material, and I will give you examples that you understand what I mean. I would like to shed light on a few aspects around this. We are speaking about the material, but of course the fact which makes the item a heritage, a cultural heritage, is the immaterial aspects of the work of art, of this thing we are talking about, or this book we are talking about. And another basic idea of minimal intervention is that we simply do not know everything. And another thing which I would like to bring forward is that taking apart a binding in very, very rare cases is justified, and it is actually no conservation as such, because it does not fulfill these two aspects which we had: keep the state and prevent further decay. Finally, documentation is a part of any conservation treatment. Documentation of the state you find the book in, but also of your treatments and also of the reasons. You must also write down the reasons why you are choosing this or that material and this or that measure. And I would like to start my picture series with that example of what was considered a documentation. I must explain these pictures a bit. You have two photographs of two different books, and I put the photo of the state before conservation, which I found as a black and white photo in the book, on top. So this area with the red arrows was this area before conservation. Yeah, this is a photo, and this is the recent state. This one book, and here you have the second example, and you see in this case, first of all, the original raised embanks in this case was completely misunderstood, and also here the flap. There was no flap now, it was made into a turning, was cut. You cannot, from this, you cannot understand that there was a flap. And this is the only picture existing, and this is, of course, no documentation. I mean, it gives us a glimpse into what was before, but this is not a conservative documentation. Here, this is a picture published by Sir Maid in his book Archaeology of Medieval Bookbinding. It is one of the Reichenau manuscripts in a link stitch binding. This is lost due to restoration. This is a different example. It might not be what we would do today, but it was bound or restored in the 1950s, when the discussion about standards in ethics in conservation was going on, and was then summarized in a Chart of Venice. And what they did was they tried to keep the original binding, but what they actually did, they made a new binding and put the front cover, they cut it a bit, and put it as a mirror, which has several disadvantages. Not only that it doesn't look very nice to my mind, but also, of course, it gives attention to the fault here, because it's quite thick skin leather. In contrast of the same library, and both are Hildesheim Cathedral Library, and the head of the library is very happy that his library is mentioned here, is another book. It's a Reichenau manuscript. The other one was a bit younger. And here it was restored at the same time, and here we see how sensitive the conservator was. He kept everything of the leather. Here we have the area which was previously covered by metal decoration, and we see the faded and not faded dyes in the leather, but it was no reason for him to take down these leftovers. And at the same time, the ideas of conservation were understood properly in this case, and it was a good try in this previous case. So we have them one aside the other, and you see the big difference between a minimal intervention, we could say, and a try for a good restoration. And here I would like to show you this. This is also published. Those who are familiar with the topic book conservation know also where it is published, and I would like to give it as a bad example, because here you can't see and you can't feel anymore that this is parchment. It looks like a facsimile plastic something. And now I have some examples of my work. I would like to start with this Köchelverzeichnis. It is what usually comes to a workshop, sometimes also to bookbinder workshops for restoration, for conservation. And very quickly I would like to introduce my approach. The binding was open, it was sewn in here, and I put a thread there which had been lost. And then I put back all the backing as it was remaining. I did not pull it off or throw it away. You can see on the left side here, this is rolling up and it's put back. But as to stabilize, I added then a course of fiber paper, and also this I prolonged the station material, and I just put it back where it was. And I did not see a reason to inlay the missing paper. Oops. That is the final photo. It does not look new, but it is working again. And I think it has its authentic charm, and it can be used again. Tears, of course, are a risk for the page that it gets lost, because it's very badly hinged. So tears are closed by, I don't know if you can see it here, is a 3-gram course of fiber and specially cooked wheat starch paste. These are medieval bindings where the leather is rolled and it's brought back, because here the leather is at risk to get lost. The same here. And then something I also want to draw your kind attention to is that it is not needed to throw away the boards if they are cardboard, even if they are very much decayed by insects, like in this case. It is possible to keep them because they might have inscriptions, or like in this case, it was a second use of the boards, which could be seen only but a little leftovers of the ribbons to close the book, and we only filled out all the missing parts and used them again. And finally, this was something which I was actually surprised of, and it was a try of my own. These are medieval clasps, and the leather strips were broken due to use. And in this case, I really brought to my own conscious these 3 steps: the proper material, proper preparation, and proper application. What I did here was I I did not take them down, these parts of the clasps. I went into the still existing leather remains, opened them, and with specially cooked wheat starch paste, I entered a bridge. And the same you can see here. This is the original part. I opened it here and put the wheat starch paste. It's another example. And I was not sure if this would be enough. But when I had finished this, I really strongly pulled on it as much as I could, because I thought, if it's opening now, if sliding out now, then I can think up something else. But it worked. And that's what I wanted to share with you. This is the usual thing. And this is an example for, it's one but last slide, but this is a slide or a picture to remind us that we only can see what we know already. This is a photo of the research of Karin Skeper. She is in the Netherlands and she is specializing on, I don't like the expression, but she calls them Islamic bookbindings. And these bookbindings were taken for case bindings for a long time. And only lately she found that they are no case bindings, but all of them have a joint of the leather here. And it was open, this fact was open for so many generations and nobody saw it. And therefore, I think we must be very reluctant in interfering into the original too much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia. Really interesting presentation, starting from the more philosophical definitions and then to the practical examples. Really interesting. So maybe do you have some questions on the presented materials and examples?
Yes. I have a question about the statement that if you have no intervention in an object, it doesn't need justification. I personally do not agree with that, because it happens several times when I have to explain to a client that conservation is not needed or wanted. I have to explain it to him why it isn't necessary.
Yes, I completely agree. This is the communication between the client and you. This is education of the society. But what is meant here was the philosophical level.